questions.
Yeah, just mentally, though. Are you okay?
Kidding me? Are you
Melissa McCarthy back on Saturday Night Live as Sean Spicer after another turbulent week. Let's talk about it now on our roundtable with Cokie Roberts, the president of the Americans for Tax Reform, Grover Norquist, Democratic strategist Jamal Simmons, editor of the National Review, Rich Lowry, and the editor and publisher of The Nation, Katrina vanden Heuvel. Hard to know where to begin. So much happens in any single week. Cokie Roberts. Well, let's talk about the travel ban struck down, at least the temporary restraining order upheld now by the Ninth Circuit panel. You saw there from Steve Miller, it looks like the White House is going to fight on two fronts. They will continue appealing in the Ninth Circuit, but also come out with some kind of revised executive order.
Because it's all in the context of Neil Gorsuch on the Hill trying to be confirmed as a Supreme Court justice. So they don't want it to go to the Supreme Court while it's still a 4-4 court. So they need to keep playing out other options so that they can eventually, if it does get to the Supreme Court, they'll have a 5-4 court.
Is that the best case?
Yeah, look, I think this is a flatly political ruling. You put up the statute that's in black and white that gives the president the authority to do this. It's not even mentioned in the Ninth Circuit decision. But this is a legal box canyon for the administration, this current path. There's no good result coming from where they are now. So they have the whip hand still. They can unilaterally rewrite the order. They should make it clear it doesn't apply to green card holders.
It sounds like they weren't going to do that. Why not just pull back the order, moot out the whole current issue, and come back with one that's more airtight?
I think that's exactly what they should do.
You know, this is a week. The president has discovered the limits of his power. No president is above the law. But I think, George, it shouldn't go unmarked. These are unprecedented times. The interview you just did with Stephen Miller. There is a calculated strategy to delegitimize the institutions which should hold this administration accountable. The judiciary is obviously one. And the media. And a media that will not just be self-interested, but a media that will hold power accountable, and a media that will expose this administration for failing to fulfill its campaign promises to hold Wall Street accountable and stand with working people.
And Grover, on the issue of delegitimization, you saw the president, you saw his pick for the Supreme Court, Judge Gorsuch, come out this week and tell senators he was disheartened, dismayed. It seemed for 12 hours that the White House strategy was to allow Judge Gorsuch to do that, and then the president wakes up the next morning and calls it into question.
Well, look, the president's picked a Supreme Court justice. He's going to get through whether the Democrats give him 60 votes or if they filibuster, then they'll go nuclear. So he's going to be the next Supreme Court justice. I think it is wise for the president to have people who clearly are independent thinkers as well as moving in the general direction he wants to. You certainly see that in the cabinet picks that he's had, who've stepped away from some of the particular positions presidents had during a campaign. You know, if you're going to govern the country, you're going to do it with a lot of different people. Not everybody agrees with you on 100 key issues. I think it speaks well for the president's judgment and his willingness to, because you have to trust a Supreme Court judge. They're going to be making a whole bunch of decisions, and you're not in the room.
For decades.
Yes,
yes. Decades to come.
George, I have to say, the thing about this all that is so concerning to me is that the president is undermining all of these American institutions. He's going after the press. He's going after the judiciary, things that we're talking about. It's starting to make it seem a little bit also like America first is really white America first. Because if you look at what he's doing, he's going after immigrants. Even in his administration, the reason we know who Colin Powell and Condi Rice are because Republican presidents appointed them to significant jobs. This president doesn't even have any African Americans, Latinos in unusual jobs in his cabinet. This is something that I think we all have to sort of worry about, because the United States of America has been moving in a direction for about 30 or 40 years where everybody gets to participate. We've been teaching our children that. And the reason why you see so many Democrats and progressives, and not just Democrats and progressives, but also independents on the streets, is because this president is moving us away from the direction we've been heading.
I think there's a lot of truth to that, and it's interesting because the president himself keeps undermining the possibility of anything seeming normal. So, for instance, yesterday, when there were all of these roundups of undocumented people in the country, the ICE people were saying, look, we're just doing exactly what happened in the Obama administration. It's not anything unusual, all that. And then the president tweets, I'm keeping my campaign promises. I'm getting all these people out of here. And those tweets are very damaging. What Katrina said is absolutely right. Today, again, he tweeted against the courts. If you start undermining the court system and constantly undermining the media, the Congress isn't going to stop this president. So you've really tried to get rid of any check on him.
There's only one branch of government in this case that has clearly overstepped its bounds, and that's the courts. This is a ruling that ignores the black letter of the law, where Congress gave the president the authority to do this clearly and obviously. And I don't like the Judge Robart tweet calling the so-called judge, but it's okay for a president to criticize the court and court ruling.
But isn't
Does
that
the
an
left
important...
accept Citizens United?
No,
did President Obama accept Citizens United and say it was
that's
totally
very
legitimate because the
different.
court had ruled that way?
But, Rich, isn't that an
Taking on a
important
judge.
distinction?
It
I
is
think
an
you're
important
exactly right.
distinction.
Lots and lots of presidents have disagreed
Yes.
with court rulings without calling into question the legitimacy of the judge making the ruling.
He shouldn't have done that. But look, what was his tweet on right after the Ninth Circuit ruling? See you in court. Even if that's in all capital letters, that is not a threat to our system or to our
I also
republic.
think we should stop the hyper coverage of his tweets. He's winning the morning and distracting us from some real news. But listen, we're seeing resistance in the streets. And as a progressive, I believe the people are leading the politicians right now. But I also think you need that resistance to now go from protest to politics. And I think we will witness. We see at the rallies, people energized. I've been following this. Thousands of people want to run for office.
Right.
So we need
interesting
to have, I don't like the analogy, but a tea party of values, a tea party of progressives. Thousands of people running at the local level for school boards, for city councils, and that is happening. And it's
Let me bring that
important.
question to Grover right here, because you are seeing now a lot of demonstrations at town meetings on a variety of issues. Immigration demonstrations in the streets. It seems like a lot of the energy at these town meetings is around Obamacare. Do you believe it's reaching a point where it actually might affect the decisions of Republican members of Congress?
No, because not only do we just have an election, and a lot of folks in the press and the left look at the president and say, oh, the president won, everything's changed. They missed the last 4 elections. The Republicans have swept the state legislatures, the governorships, the Senate, the House, and only recently the presidency. This is not new. This has been going on for 4 elections now, where we have 2/3 of all the state legislative bodies in the country are Republican. 25 states have a Republican governor, and both houses Republican. 4 states are all Democrat, meaning the Democrats have the governorship and both houses of the legislature. Half the country lives in a red state. What made the Tea Party important was these were demonstrations and people coming out inside districts held by Democrats that used to be Republican, and they flipped back to the Republicans. You can have as many demonstrators or mobs as you want in completely blue congressional districts. They don't change things.
Here's the danger, though, Grover. The danger is when you get 2 to 3 million women on the street like we did a couple of weeks ago, those are people's wives, sisters, daughters who have to go home, and they have people that they talk to. And I think that you're going to start to see people show up like they did in Jason Chaffetz's district, who are going to hold them accountable and want the Republicans to say something and do something to push back on this president.
And this business of women feeling marginalized is real. And in the middle of all of that, for Mitch McConnell to basically tell Elizabeth Warren to sit down and shut up was just something.
It was a gift to Elizabeth Warren.
Absolutely.
The idea that she persisted is the history of how women have made progress.
And there are now T-shirts, of course. She persisted.
And Sally Yates started that at the Justice Department when she was fired by Donald Trump for telling everyone not to enforce his
But Grover,
Sure he did, but she showed the kind of courage that Democrats want to see.
Grover is right to a certain extent. One has to be realistic. The Democratic Party at the state level has been decimated. It will be a struggle. It will be a generational struggle to rebuild. But there's nothing like a Trump to concentrate the mind. Hanging concentrates the mind.
Decimated is 1 out of 10. At the state legislative level, they lost about 25%.
Yeah, but you know, as someone I know, Eric Schneiderman, Attorney General of New York, and the attorneys general are going to play a big role. We're going to see cities and states around this country provide sanctuary, provide alternative policies of important kinds. He says when they go low, we go local.
Rich,
we go local.
Let me bring another question to you. I mean, and every new White House faces this, but you've seen the poor drafting of the executive order. You see the hot water for Kellyanne Conway this week. The serious questions about General Flynn, Sean Spicer, sort of battling it out every day at that podium. Is this White House staff ready for prime time, organized for prime time?
Well, I don't think anyone's really ready for this responsibility, and you have a lot of people who haven't operated at this level of government before. At the same time, the cabinet nominations have been slow walked by Senate Democrats. So you're going to have a certain amount of chaos, and certainly the shambolic rollout of the executive order hurt. The Flynn thing, though, is I don't understand why it's illegal or inappropriate for the incoming National Security Advisor to talk to a foreign official. But if
then
he
why
really
not tell the truth to the
right.
vice president about it?
The cover-up is worse.
Right, if he wasn't truthful to the vice president about it, one, that's going to poison that relationship. Two, the backdrop here is what appears to be a revolt of a certain element of the intelligence community against the administration, and that never ends well.
That's because they're picking fights with everyone, the press, the intelligence, and the
But it is a remarkably inexperienced group of people. Right. Usually you can bring in people from a past administration. The combination of the fact that they didn't have those people or that they're too old.
But that's why Trump won. I mean, the disruption. But I think it's important to step back also on the Kellyanne Conway and the Nordstroms. Stephen Miller tried to dismiss that. It is the case. You want to address what's happening in this country, what's happening to working people. But did those people want their taxpayer money to go to White House staff shilling for the president's business? I mean, it's a deeper problem. It's a deeper problem. You said slow-walked confirmation. Well, a lot of those people who were up for agencies never went through the Independent Office of Ethics adequately. And the most important thing is they want to dismantle the very agencies they're going to run. Is that governing?
Guys, newspapers and Sunday shows watch traffic accidents and they miss the traffic that's flowing. What's happening now? They're preparing the abolition of Obamacare. They have Price is now running HHS, Dr. Price, and he can, through executive orders and decisions, deconstruct much of the damage done. This is $1 trillion of tax increases.
And Congress are going to support it. It seems like they're resisting it.
I think you're going to have a lot of
privatizing Medicare.
Right.
The answer is yes, it'll pass. And it'll pass with a replacement that actually empowers customers.
Well, nobody has been able to figure out what that replacement is and how to pay for it.
It's written down, and they're having meetings on it every day. You guys are chasing after Spicer and Kellyanne, and you're missing that the House, Senate, and the White House.
No, we're not.
We're not missing it.
This is where I think they should react to this protest at the town halls, not by backing off on repeal, but doubling down and be more committed on replacement. Because you don't want, CBO score saying 18 million people are going to lose their insurance. You need an answer to that question.
Well, but they don't
and there are a bunch of laws that worked on this, but the party is a consensus.
Grover, the very communities which elected Trump, in West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, ravaged by an opioid epidemic, they will be the first hit. Lives will be lost. Lives are in the balance. As you said, that families have sisters, mothers, who will be hit hard. I think it becomes the issue in 2018, and I think it could be as galvanizing.
I wish we had more time. We will come back to this, I'm sure. Thank you all very much. Great discussion. We'll be right back.